Welcome everyone. My name's Jeff St. Laurent and this is the Tuesday live show. Today I'm going to teach you how to become a master asker. It's learning how to ask for business, and there's some fine tuning to that. It's not just about asking anybody. It's about understanding having the ability to ask, the skill set to ask, and understanding the timing for the ask as well. There's a lot involved with that, and I want you to start to understand the basics of that. I help coaches transition to a full-time business. I have a lot of great resources on my website, sellingcoaching.com. That's also where I put all of these live show recordings. If you haven't checked out that already, they're in the university at sellingcoaching.com. If you want to become part of my community, get a great resource right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com. You can enter your name and email address, get a great audio resource. It is the Launching Your Coaching Business, the first 3 vital steps. That's also going to put you, like I said, in my email community. You'll get an email from me on a weekly basis sharing some great information on how you can transition to a full-time business and all the parts in between. I've got a lot of great courses and stuff that I do, not only my one-on-one stuff, my group stuff as well. So check out in the description here, whether you're watching this live or in the recording, I have another, I'm going to be running another 14-day GoPro challenge coming up in a couple weeks. I'll be sharing more about that, and if you're in my email community, you'll get notified of when that's happening. I'm also running another 5-month GoPro Elite group mentor coaching program into about 3 or 4 weeks from now as well. So be on the lookout for that. You can check out more information, like I said, in the description here, whether you're watching this live or in the recording for some of that stuff. But either way, get on to sellingcoaching.com, enter your name and email so you can become part of my community and take advantage of all these great resources, and it's going to help you with everything you need in terms of moving forward with your coaching business. Now, as far as today goes, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics is asking questions. And as a coach, hopefully you're excited about this topic too. And when I started coaching and learning about coaching, when I went through my coaching certification back in 03, 04, I understood the power of a question, and questions became my favorite thing in the world. Open-ended questions, and it just questions allow insight not only into other people and learning things as well, but also when we ask ourselves powerful questions, we can uncover clarity and so forth and so on and take action. Now, when it comes to coaching skill set, that's one thing. However, if you're a coach and now you're in business for yourself, the great part is that if you're coaching, you're asking questions and you ask your clients those questions. But now when it comes to the business of coaching, it's the same thing. It's just applied differently. And here it's asking for business. And I'll open up with just a quick story. And this is when I was starting off. And like I said, 04 is when I really started my coaching business. So I think this was like maybe late 04, early 05. I wasn't even a year into my business, still learning. I think it was like early 05, I think it was, because I was working with my mentor coach back then. I've always had mentor coaches, not just coaches, but more importantly, mentor coaches, business mentor coaches that have allowed me to understand the business of what I'm doing, because I got coaching, and it doesn't mean I couldn't get better. I worked on that skill set, but I realized I needed to work on the business skill set. That's why I hired mentor coaches. That's why fast forward now in year 17 of my business, and for the last 6-7 years, I've been mentor coaching now, helping coaches specifically with all the details and structures, etc. But I remember when I did this one event, I did a speaking engagement. I had about 25 people there. And I felt really good. I remember the title was Deodorize Your Stinking Thinking. It was all about mindset and how our mind dictates in terms of our actions, our thoughts, our results, etc. And so after the event, I remember I was in the back of the room talking with a bunch of the people that were there. It's like 4 or 5 people that were, talking with me like, oh, great, I love this. And the 3 in particular, they seemed like they really, really resonated. But after the event was done, I walked away and I didn't get any clients out of it. And I was a little bit disappointed. And so I had a meeting with my mentor coach, I think it was like the next day or early the next week. And I'm like, well, no one hired me. And he's like, well, did you ask? And I'm like, well, no. He's like, dummy. He called me a dummy, but it's like, dude, you need to ask. You need to follow up with those people. He's like, those, especially those 3-5 people that you were talking to after the event who really resonated with it. they resonated with it because they're going through something where, whatever you said to them was helpful for them. He's like, you need to follow up with me. And he kind of guided me through it a little bit. And I followed up with those people and then more people, but I knew what to say. I was better. He guided me in terms of what I could say. And then also, how to initiate those conversations and start to take them through a process that I didn't really have at that point. And by the end of the following week, I had 5 paying clients. And it was just like, oh. So I went from like not getting any clients to getting 5 clients. And I can't remember specifically, what happened with those people afterwards from that specific event, but I'm sure that also turned into other, business down the road as well, because I stayed in touch and I followed up with those people as well, especially as I learned more. And it really opened my eyes to understanding how much business I had missed out on prior to that. Now, luckily, I didn't learn that in year 10. I learned that in year 1. But the point is I realized how much business I was missing out on simply because I wasn't asking, simply because I was being too passive. And I know a lot of coaches who are starting off, and I felt this way too, is sometimes, we don't want to be too aggressive. We don't want to be pushy. We want to be that guy or that girl, that pushy salesperson, etc. We don't want to intrude with people and make them feel uncomfortable. Yet, if we're not asking questions and opening up conversations to start to understand more about this person and where they're at and maybe some of their challenges, if they've consumed any of our information, whether it's online or at an event, whether it's written audio like in a podcast or video like this or a presentation, if they've resonated with it at all, if they're making any comments around it, starting to ask questions to start to uncover, why, what are they connecting with? More importantly, what are they going through, in their world, in their circumstances right now where they're connecting with this information? Tell me more about that. Those are great coaching questions, right? But those are also great sales questions because they're starting to open up and uncover a person's needs and where a person's at. And then more importantly, how with whatever you've done, education that you've put out there, et cetera, your message, what, if anything, they're resonating with. And, are they open for help? And also why is now the right time maybe where they might want to do something about this? And so I want you to start to understand that the greatest part about being a coach is being objective and asking questions, not being detached. It's being detached, from any outcomes or agendas. It's having and holding the client's agenda. And in here, when it comes to our business, it's very similar in the sense that we're asking questions, but in this case, it's not even so. I'll say we have an agenda, but I don't want you to think it's like, oh, the agenda is we have to get the client or we want them to sign up and hire us. Ultimately, of course, we want that to happen, but our agenda is when we ask questions in this sales process, in becoming a master asker that can lead towards business, is really starting to understand, what are we going for? If we understand how we get the business to begin with, we're better able to understand what questions we must ask to start to understand so we could potentially achieve that objective. But the only way we're going to achieve that objective is not by pushing someone through a process, is by understanding some of the vital components. You've heard me talk about them before. If you're a student of mine, need, timing, etc. And are they looking for some help? Are they open for some help? But I really want you to start, getting into that space where when we start asking, it's part of our job, our duty as a coach now in business for yourself is to ask questions to uncover those needs, to find out where someone's at, that they're struggling with, that they're having a hard time with, that they want to make better or maybe even improve. But most of the time is they're in a challenging situation where they're stuck and they don't have clarity. Right? And we understand this. A lot of us coaches, we've been there ourselves. We've been in a position where we were stuck. We're in a pretty dire situation, et cetera, circumstances, transition, et cetera, that we've worked through. Hence, somehow we came into coaching and now it's like, wow, we've fallen in love with the process because of what it's done for us. And now it's like, we want to do that. We want to help other people with that same thing. So now our job is no different now. It's starting to understand a little bit. And sometimes you can attach whatever word to it that you want. And, words have energy, right? So if you're thinking about it as, oh, we're intruding, or we're prying, or we're snooping, or, we're getting too personal, we're asking, those personal questions when I don't know somebody yet, that why would that feel comfortable? But if I can refrain some of that stuff, it's more of we're starting to be curious. We're interested. We're genuinely interested and curious in terms of what they're going through. We're genuinely interested in how we could potentially help them. Whether we work with them, whether they hire us, whether we give them a referral, whether we send them some information, whether it's ours or somebody else's, that's always my mindset is when I'm interacting now with a coach, but prior to that, when I was working with people in terms of life coaching or business coaching outside of what I do now as a mentor coach, I was always interested in how I could help that person in any way. And I don't care if it was something totally off scope, like referring someone to, getting snow tires, totally random topic, right? If they had a need, right? Or something I could help them with in their life or their business, etc. Now when I'm interacting with coaches, I'm not interacting with them solely because I want them to, hire me as their mentor coach in my one-on-one or group stuff or take my 14-day GoPro challenge. It's like, well, yeah, I love that down the road if they're in a position for it. But in my interactions now, I'm looking to understand and make a connection of like, who are they? What are they going through? Where are they at with their coaching business? What are they looking to do with it? And that's what you're looking to do in your conversations where you're beginning. This is prior to asking for business. This is setting the stage to asking for business. We can't ask for business until we set the stage and lay some groundwork. And that's our coaching questions. But now these aren't coaching questions of like, tell me your first step and what's next and what's something you might be able to do it's not actually forward action steps, allowing them clarity, etc. Our questions in the sales process is starting to uncover the needs that they have, the challenges that they're going through, how serious they are about doing something about it. Where are they now? Why now? Are they looking for some help? Are they open for some help? And then that sets the stage for us understanding them and making the connection where we can then ask. When I say ask for business, it's not, hey, do you want to hire me? Because we know with coaching, it's not like, oh, hey, do you want to buy this water bottle? It's not a tangible product that's easily understood. The value of that product is easily understood. A water bottle, it's this big. How much would I pay for that? $5-10. Okay. Or let me go on Amazon and check it out. Right? That's a very easy purchase when there's a need there. But with our coaching, it's not a very easy purchase because the value for what we offer is not easily identifiable. Therefore, we've got to take someone through a process with coaching. That's important for us to understand. That's the challenge of what we're doing is it's nurturing a relationship, asking questions to understand that, getting to a certain point where we understand enough where we say, hey, listen, I can see that you're going through a challenge right now. I'm wondering if you're open for some help. Or, I am a coach and I work with people just like yourself who are going through some of these challenges. And I really believe I can help. I'm wondering if you might be open to taking a closer look at how I could help you, if we were to work together. And it's starting to ask some of those questions. Are you open for some help? I'm a coach. Here's what I do. Would you be open for a conversation to talk a little bit more about, maybe what you're going through and maybe how I could help you to see if it's something you want to, talk further about or look into with more detail. It's a simple question, and a lot of it is what I find is when we get to this position, we're not asking maybe for a couple reasons. We're not asking one, not in any order, but we're not asking one because we don't know what to ask, how to ask it, or the other reason is we're just maybe afraid of the answer. We're afraid of like, it goes back to like high school or, you really like a guy or a girl and you're just like, oh, I want to ask her out or I want to ask him out or whatever. And you're just afraid of the answer being no, and so you don't ask or maybe you're not afraid of that, but you're not quite sure what's the approach, right? How do I bring this up? How do I find the right time to do this? Right. Or in any situation in your life, asking a friend, a spouse or something like that, in any situation, to me, it falls under those two categories. It's, you're afraid of the answer not being what you want, or you're just not sure how and when to approach that or what exactly to say. And so part of what I'm doing with you here today is starting to give you some methodology and mindset behind it with some language as well. I mean, that's what I do. A lot of the people that I work with, well, everyone that I work with, when they get to that stage where they're talking to leads, like I'm literally helping them, walking them through conversations, literally sometimes telling them what to say once I get an idea of what their natural inclinations are, because I want them to start to learn this. I want them to start to actually practice it. And it's so funny because when they actually do it with some guidance, it's easier to do it because you have some guidance on it as well. But then you'd be surprised. Well, I don't know if you would actually be surprised at the results, because oftentimes when you ask, or if you ask enough, it doesn't mean everything's going to move forward, but it means that sooner or later, at some point, something's going to move forward. And that comes into the frequency of action, asking, the frequency of conversations. And so you're most likely at a stage, watching this, where you're newer, you're starting off, you don't have a lot of interaction, you don't have a lot of people, you don't have an audience right now, or much of an audience other than maybe friends, family, colleagues, former colleagues, etc. And so it's our job to start getting a message out there. And that's all marketing is. I always say marketing is communication. Communication is marketing. It's synonymous. And so it's communicate something, share something. If you don't know what to say, share something. I know you have something to say, and see what happens as a result of that. And okay, well, Jeff, I did a post or I did a video and no one did anything. No one said anything. Oh, I guess this doesn't work. Well, no, do it again and do it again the next week, the next week, next week. Call some people, start talking to some people, and set up a speaking engagement, set up a little presentation to 5, 10, 15 people, free 30-minute presentation, and speak a message, and let's talk afterwards and see what happens. That's how we start to do this. That's not rocket science, right? But where the challenge comes in is all the subtleties in between. And what I'm encouraging you to today is, where in that process are you asking? How much are you asking? When I always go back to my clients, and even some of the programs, some of my more advanced programs for my students, that as they've evolved through my challenge and my one-on-one or group stuff, some of the advanced groups that I'm running here, it's very focused and really dialed into this asking in the sales process, and revenue focused, etc. And on a weekly basis, we're meeting as a group, and I'm like, well, show me your statistics. How many new people have you reached out to? How many people did you ask? How many people did you get on a call? How many people did you actually approach and ask? Are they open to learning more about how you could help them if you were to work with them as their coach, etc. And those are some hard numbers. We got to look at those statistics. So we've got to start. You might not be there yet to ask, but let's get to the part where we're actually starting to communicate our message on a more regular basis. And all we're looking for, like right now, I know there's people watching live. So if you're watching the recording this, like, don't worry about this. But if you're watching this live right now, like, make a comment. Like, hey, even if it's just like, hey, Jeff, what's up? I like to see who's there anyways, right after the fact. But so let's just say, hopefully some of you make a comment, right? Tell me what's resonating with you. Tell me, what's standing out for you so far. What's impactful for you, anything like that. I want to see if any comments come through. And so what I'll say is so I'll be looking for those in a second. Hopefully someone actually makes a comment right now. But either way, so what I'll do is and what you could do is, if you have a video you put out there, you have a post, something you're getting out into the world, at least in a social media standpoint right away, and you see some comments, that's your cue to start asking some questions, right? So if someone writes right now, like, oh, I'm connecting with, or, there's something you said about X, Y, or Z that really, resonates with me. That's a situation where I can now follow up with that person. I can start asking that person, like, oh, thanks so much. I'm glad you tuned in live to my, my show, and I saw that you wrote that you blah, blah, blah. So, all right, a comment just came through. So Lauren, good to see you, Lauren, one of my great mentor coaching clients. She's in one of my GoPro Elite programs. So she wrote, love the idea of just being consistent with putting yourself out there, right? So let's just say I didn't know Lauren, and whether this came through live or not after this is done, right? I might just go to Lauren and follow up with her afterwards, and I might just write in the comments and say, hey, Lauren, let's assume I don't know her, like, oh, I'm so glad, this was so helpful for you. It sounds like you might want to, put yourself out there more, keep at it. And then I might go private message Lauren and go, hey, Lauren, it's Jeff. And I saw you made a comment, on my live show today about, the idea of putting yourself out there and being consistent with that. Tell me a little bit more about, where you're at in your business, where, the concept of, being consistent in putting your marketing message out there, resonated with you. Right? Now you could do this for anything. I'm just talking about right now. Like Suli wrote, I know Suli as well. She wrote making contacts even just to say hello to the people I know, right? And so I could do the same thing. Like I should make a quick comment there, say, hey Suli, good seeing you. Glad this is resonating with you, or I'm glad this has been helpful. And then go to a private message and write her and ask her like, hey, I saw you tune into my live show, and it looks like reaching out to contacts, even just to reach out and open up conversations, was an important concept, in today, what I talked about today. I'm curious, is this something you're looking to do more of in your business? Tell me more. And I'm just opening up a conversation, right? And that's what I mean by starting to ask some questions, but I'm starting to me, that's marketing, right? And it doesn't mean, assuming I don't know these people or they're not my clients, it doesn't mean, I've got to get Suli or Lauren to hire me. It just means I know the only way that it could ever go in that direction is if I start opening and engaging a conversation. Whether it goes in that direction or not doesn't matter. What does matter is that I'm on it and I'm actually engaging with them, and I'm starting to ask and open up those questions to see if there's opportunity, right? Because there's certain criteria, which I'm not going to go over today because I got to start wrapping this up, but there's certain criteria that we've got to start to understand that need to be present in order for me to actually ask, right? They've got to have a need and things like that. They've got to be wanting to do something about that. But I first got to build some rapport and start that process off. But hopefully this has been helpful in terms of you just starting to recognize that, you're asking. It just goes back to my story that I shared in the beginning of this, where I said like, hey, I did that event, 25 people, talked to a bunch of people afterwards, and no one hired me. And then I was like, I realized I didn't ask. And all of a sudden I started asking, following up with people, and next thing you know, a week later, 5 people hired me. That's the difference. There's clients out there. I see it all the time with my mentor coaching clients, and they start doing things that I'm helping them with, and afterwards following up with people. I'm like, there's opportunity there, and when I work them through it, there's clients there. It's just a matter of seeing it, engaging, asking questions, and